Hi everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started and go through Chapter 3 of your APA manual. And the focus is on writing a clear and concise document. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start out with the overall organization of your composition. So you want to have a very clear purpose, what you have in mind as you're writing your papers. And just as you're doing your assignments, make sure that you really focus on the content that's required in the rubrics. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that your paper is organized in a manner that it flows very well. And again, many times the rubrics really help you to set up that structure or that outline for your assignment. So keep that in mind. You want to keep the flow of the document in an order that makes sense. And you also want to avoid duplication. So many times some of our resources actually say very similar information, and what you can do, are the authors of those documents say similar information. So what you can do is make a statement and then cite more than one resource as the source of that information. So if you have two different articles or journal entries that have the same general information, you can actually include your own words, what the two articles enclose, and you can actually make a statement and then cite both authors to avoid saying so-and-so said that the sky is blue and so-and-so said that the sky is blue and sometimes a little gray. So you can use those general statements together that both said that the sky is blue. So as you're writing your documents, it's really important to, again, provide that structure, and that helps your reader as well. So we're talking about including headings in your paper, and again, that will keep all of your thoughts about one particular area of your paper together, and it will help you to have better flow in your overall document. So when we're looking at our writing styles, we want to make sure that we're using a professional writing style. So we want to use a good flow, as I alluded to earlier, as far as organization. We want to make sure that we're very clear about what we're writing, and we're very clear as far as our subject. We don't want to infer things. We want to make sure that as our reader is reading the document, that they fully understand and can grasp the information that you're relaying. So again, you want to be very concise with your writing and very clear with your writing, and write in a professional tone. And that brings us to our next slide. So we want to avoid any kind of slang. We want to avoid inferring our own judgments on things, whether we think something is good, bad. That's not necessarily part of the scientific writing process. We write about facts, so keep that in mind. We don't want to add labels or say that something, may not be appropriate. We list things as they are facts. So we don't want to pass judgment on things. We want to allow our reader to really examine the facts that are included within our writing and our documentation. So we also want to make sure that we use professional words to describe race, ethnic identity, sexual orientation. So we want to make sure that we're presenting our work without any kind of bias or slang type labels. So when we're looking at the composition as a whole, we want to avoid extra words. We want to be very direct in what we say. We want to look at our sentence format, and we want to avoid enclosing two separate thoughts in the same sentence. And that's something that I do tend to see, is those run-on sentences that really can confuse a reader. I know that as you're composing, you know exactly what you want to relay, But I strongly suggest as you're doing your papers and editing your papers that you actually read your papers out loud, and that really keys us into some things that may not sound quite right and helps us to identify some of those problems that may be within a paper that you didn't intend. So keep that in mind as well. And also, as you're writing your paper, be very focused with what you're writing. Don't add extra information that isn't really pertinent to your chosen purpose of the paper or topic. In addition, be very clear with what you're referring to in your composition. You want to avoid saying things such as this, that, it, these, those. You want to be very clear what the subject matter is as you're writing, so you don't want to use words that may confuse the reader. Sometimes you know what it is, and your reader may not know what you are referring to when you are saying it. So keep that in mind. Be very clear and use those subjects versus other words that may replace a very clear subject. You want to avoid any sayings. You want to avoid words that may mean different things to different people, such as words like huge. Huge to one person may be very different than another. So avoid jargon or common sayings. You don't want to infer anything with just colorful language. You want to, again, focus on being very clear and concise. And also, as you're writing your documents, you don't want to say the study discusses, because a study can't discuss, the authors can discuss. So you can say that Renegarby and Whittington discussed, and going on and explain, and avoid things like saying the study discussed, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, be sure to let me know. In addition, you always want to use active voice. You want to be very direct in what you're saying. You always want to use past tense when you're referring to the research, because it's already been done. So you want to relate to any kind of literature or research that has already been written in past tense. That's very important. And you also want to make sure that your subjects and your verbs agree. So if you're talking about multiple things, you don't want to say is. So you want to say are, because you want to make sure that everything is connected and you're using the appropriate verb for subjects, whether it be singular or plural. And you want to avoid dangling or misplaced modifiers. You also want to avoid ending a sentence in to, like to. For, you want to avoid ending a sentence in for. You want to be very clear and direct and use proper sentence structure. So that's a basic overview of Chapter 3. If you have any questions or concerns, I do strongly suggest that you just read through Chapter 3, just do a refresh on Chapter 3 in your APA manual, because it will help heighten the quality of your compositions as well. It never hurts to refresh and review some of the information that's included in the APA manual. So, thank you so much for your time. Take care now.